Unconditional Parenting, which is the book that I can see just over your shoulder there, which is the book that's impacted me on such a deep level, because I understand what it means, in the sense that I take these ideas on my instincts. You've connected dots in my instincts for me and my wife, and then we get to sort of have a little bit of a roadmap that we can use. We're gonna raise our small children under those influences, with those values and those codes. And that will probably go on generation after generation, because that's the idea, isn't it? Is that how we raise our children, is what they value is what they take out into the world. So you and the book Unconditional Parenting, which is the one I've read first, and I've read it twice, and I will be diving into the other books as well now. What are the key, broadly speaking, are the key things that we can pick up on as parents, as new parents, as teachers? What can we pick up on and take into our lives?
Well, first, the book begins from the premise that we should be asking not, how do I get my kid to do what I tell them, but what does my child need? What do children in general need? What does my child need? And how can I help meet those needs? That's a very different question. It's focused not on mere compliance or obedience, which is, whether they put it out there explicitly or not, the driving force, the operative question of the vast majority of parenting books. How do I get my kid to clean up his room, eat her vegetables, stop fussing with her sister, take off her boots, whatever it is. And I'm more interested in what kids need. And one of the things that kids need is not just to be loved, not even to be loved a lot, but to be loved without any strings attached, to be loved for who they are, not for what they do. That's the unconditional part here. Unfortunately, most advice that's offered to parents, certainly in the UK and in the US, is all about conditional parenting. It's all about bribes and threats, or positive reinforcement and logical consequences, which are both ways of doing things to children to get them to do what we tell them, as opposed to working with children to help them grow into good people. And so a lot of the book offers a point-by-point critique of both rewards, which lead kids to ask, what do they want me to do and what do I get for doing it? And punishments, in which kids are led to ask, what do they want me to do and what happens to me if I don't do it? And an enormous amount of research finds that rewards and punishments, both versions, again, of what I'm calling a doing to approach, are not just ineffective in the long run, in part because they focus merely on short-term behavior, the actions at the surface we can see and measure, but also because they don't get to what it is we really want ultimately for our kids. So when I do lectures and workshops for parents, and by the way, and for teachers, I used to, when these lectures were done in person, when that was a thing, I would begin by asking, what are your long-term goals for your kids? How do you want them to turn out? What would you like them to be like, long after they've grown up and maybe even moved out away? And everywhere I go, I get the same kind of answers, parents for their children, and very similar answers from teachers when they're asked about their students. I want my kids to be happy, to be ethical, to be compassionate and caring, but also to be independent, self-reliant. I want them to be critical thinkers, curious, lifelong learners. People say stuff like that everywhere you go. And so what I do for a living is I say to people, you say you want this, so why are you doing that? And here's the research to show that the typical traditional approaches to both parenting and education don't just annoy me. Who cares whether I like them? They get in the way of your own long-term goals. To take a school example, teachers typically say they want kids to be lifelong learners, to get a kick out of playing with words and numbers and ideas. And yet, Two practices, just to pick two of many: homework, where we make kids work a second shift after a full day at school, and grades or marks, where we rate them, or worse, rank them with letters or numbers, according to all the research, makes it markedly less likely that kids will be lifelong learners. Their excitement about playing with ideas begins to evaporate because they come to see it as a chore. So I tell teachers, you have to pick. Either you are serious about the goal of wanting kids to have a disposition to learn, or you continue with practices like grades and homework. You really can't have both. Or if you do, you're playing the odds in a bad way. And for parents with raising kids, similar kinds of tensions exist between what our in-laws or parenting coaches, on the internet tell us to do, and our own long-term goals for kids, again, tend to pull in opposite direction. I'll give you one concrete example. Research has consistently shown that children who are rewarded or praised, often by their parents, are less generous and caring than other kids. And the effect is most pronounced if they're rewarded or praised for being generous. If I say, "Good job, nice work, I really like the way you shared your dessert with Diane, you're such a caring person, good for you," that child just became a little more selfish as a result, in part because you've shown her that the reason to be helpful and generous and caring and share her dessert is because she will get something out of it, namely a patronizing pat on the head from you and your approval. She's just become a little less concerned about the impact of her actions on other people. And in part, rewards, including verbal doggy biscuits, good job, is destructive, just like punishments are, because they are efforts at control. It's just that with praise and rewards, stickers, gold stars, extra dessert, and so on, it's sugar-coated control. And people don't like being controlled. And on some level, even little children get it, that that's what's really happening here. That when we praise them for pleasing us or impressing us, or we give them a gold star for it, or a candy bar, or a high mark in school, we're not working with them. We're manipulating them, and so they become less committed to whatever they had to do to get the reward. And so at school and at home, my work is about weighing our own long-term goals against what research shows are the effects of traditional practices.